Hi class, welcome to Module 1. This is our introductory video to the module. In this introductory video, we'll have some announcements. I'll give you a general Module 1 overview just so you know what to look forward to, and a little brief presentation on efficient research tips. First, some announcements. In Module 1, you will need to have access to Bloomberg Law as well as Cali lessons. If you have not gotten access to either of those, please look in the syllabus on how to get access to that. Bloomberg Law, you will need to contact David Grayheck. He's in the library and he's in charge of all the access to those databases. And then Cali lessons in the syllabus, there's information on how to create an account. So please make sure you get access to those. You will need them for Module 1. Important dates for Module 1. So the module is accessible on January 8th. Your first discussion post is due January 14th. In Module 1, you just have one discussion post. It's an introduction post. The prompt is up on Blackboard. And then January 21st, your assignment is due. You should submit it through Blackboard. In Module 1, we're going to be looking at critical information literacy and background and factual information. The next two slides provide a little bit of an introduction to those. You'll receive much more information in the other content in the module. The first part of Module 1 looks at critical information literacy. And critical information literacy doesn't just look at how we access and use information, it considers the social, cultural, political, and economic dimensions of information. It also examines the ways systems of power impact the creation, distribution, and use of information. And what this does is it helps us evaluate and reflect upon our research and our sources being used. In the legal field, a major issue within the legal field is that information isn't always accessible. Legal information is not always readily accessible or usable. And that is a major concern with access to justice. We as lawyers can understand what we're looking at most of the time. And we also generally have access to Westlaw and Lexis, which are really important, but very expensive databases. For individuals who don't have access to those, how are they able to effectively access the justice system? So those are the types of questions that critical information literacy helps us consider. And the reason I'm putting it in Module 1, the reason you're looking at critical information literacy now is because I want you to think about it throughout the course. Throughout the course, we're going to be accessing information. We're going to be using information. And I want you to think critically about it, about those issues of access. How easy were things to find? How difficult were things to find? How easy was free information to find? Next in Module 1, we'll talk about factual and background research. Factual and background research is different than a lot of the legal research that you may be most accustomed to. Factual and background research involves fact-finding and non-legal research. So we're not looking for cases or statutes or regulations. We're not looking for primary sources that create law. We're looking for those secondary sources to help us understand our issue. They can also help us find expert witnesses and fulfill our due diligence. Some types of the factual and background research that we'll be exploring are public records research, finding information on individuals, finding information on businesses and corporations, and also researching scientific and medical information. Now, in the health law field, this is really important because you might need to look up and see, has a doctor been sanctioned? Has their license ever been suspended? We can look that up through public records. We might also just need to know a pharmaceutical company. What did it say about its drug? Maybe we're bringing a tort claim against a pharmaceutical company and we want to know what they've said about their drug on their websites. So this is what factual and background information research is. It's not looking for law, but it's helping us to understand our issue, to contextualize our issue. Now I want to go over a few tips on efficient research. The first tip is develop knowledge through secondary sources. Remember, secondary sources are those sources that help us explain the law, help us understand the law, but they don't create the law, but they can help us find it and find it more efficiently. For example, we might use a treatise to identify important cases or important statutes. And then we can take that information and more efficiently search Lexis and Westlaw. Another tip is to use a variety of sources. And this might seem counterintuitive. You may think using one source would make you more efficient. But in reality, using multiple sources can help you be more efficient and also be more effective. So back to that example of using a secondary source, a treatise, in order to find cases and statutes. Another way of being an efficient researcher is to create a manageable system of organizing and storing information. And this is where in Module 1, you'll notice that there are samples of a research plan and a research log for you to review. And those are two ways of really organizing and storing information to help you be more efficient. A research plan helps you identify your legal issue or your question presented, and it helps you plan your research. So in that 6-step research process, this would be where preliminary analysis is. Before you ever start researching, before you ever open up Westlaw or Lexis or any database, you should do this preliminary analysis and create a research plan. It should be referred to throughout the research process. So things that would be in a research plan, your deadlines, your timeline. We're never going to have enough time to research something, so recognizing that from the beginning is really important. Also, the list of resources available. Do you have access to Lexis or Westlaw or both? And what are the types of resources on those systems that you might want to access? Do you have access to free resources? What might be the best resources to start with? And then a list of keywords and search terms. You're beginning to organize your research vocabulary, and listing them out now can help you brainstorm lots of different keywords and search terms. Use a thesaurus. I love using a thesaurus when I'm creating this list of keywords and search terms. And then a research plan also might include research steps. So you're going to start with secondary sources, then you'll go to primary sources, and so on and so forth, and fill out those research steps. A research log is how you can organize your research. It helps you organize your research, and it also helps you track your research because you're listing the sources you're using during your research. It can also include summaries of findings based on your research. You're probably, for a lot of your legal research issues, you're likely not going to finish your research in one sitting. So a research log can help you remember where you already looked and where you were going. A research log can also be helpful if there are multiple people working on a project, or if you're working on a project that you'll hand off to someone. It can show them where you've already been, maybe where you're planning to go, and they can pick up more quickly and start researching. So it's efficient not only for you, but for the whole team. A research log various parts can be included, but in general, you would want to include the date you accessed the source, a citation to the source with an active hyperlink if possible, where the source was located, like was it on Westlaw, was it on Lexis, was it on the FDA's website, how the source was found, what search terms did you use, did you find the source in another source, did you find the source through a secondary source, maybe a law review article talked about a statute and that's how you found it, a summary of information and a value of the source. And this could include sources that aren't valuable. It's good and okay and very helpful to list sources that aren't valuable. So when you come across that source again, you can quickly look back and say, oh no, I already looked at this, it was not helpful, and move on. Again, efficiency. You can also list additional sources identified. So maybe a secondary source lists other secondary sources. Maybe it lists cases that could be interesting or of use to your issue. List those here so that it'll remind you to look at those later on. And then the source dates and currentness. And this is important because sometimes there's information, especially online, where you don't know when it was written or you don't know how current it is. So it's important to note that. And then you can add any extra notes. If this is something that you're going to be sharing with others, you might want to add some notes for them as to why you included something or didn't. So that's basics of a research plan and a research log and how they can help you become more efficient researchers. So that is it for the Intro to Module 1. Please proceed through the rest of the content. You have videos and readings. You also have your discussion board post, which is your introduction of yourself to the class. So please complete that. And also look at the assignment. Let me know any questions if you need any help. I am always here. So thank you so much and have a great week.